This happened on a Saturday night. I was working with just one other person. At the time, it was a girl named Elizabeth, and it was her turn to do bathroom checks. She put on the latex gloves and took the spray bottle and napkin and did her thing. For a while, everything was extremely relaxed and casual. We were really not busy at all. That's how this McDonald's tends to be on weekend nights when Elizabeth finished checking the bathrooms. She came back and leaned against the counter with me behind the register, and we just talked. We talked for a while. She was on her phone. I was just bobbing my head to the music playing in the store. We were getting ready to start cleaning and closing up. Then I saw something over the counter, a man peering over us, but I really mean peering. He was kind of just staring over the counter instead of approaching. He was looking for the people who were working. Elizabeth saw me looking over her shoulder, and she looked back and screamed. She didn't mean to, but the sight of the creepy man in a full black getup startled her. I said, "Hi, can I help you?" There was something off about him beyond his creepy, wide-eyed stare, almost as if he was under the influence of drugs or something. He didn't reply to my question of if I could help him. He just turned around and went to sit at the table in the corner of the store. Elizabeth went to clean the bathrooms and dining area, and I caught her glancing at the man every so often when she would pass by. She also looked at me every time she passed the counter, as if she thought I could do or say something, or as if she was asking what to do. After I decided that man clearly wasn't going to order anything, I requested she ignore him and try to clean the areas that were farthest from him. She had no problem with that plan. Midway through cleaning the dining area, she came behind the counter, all of a sudden, very concerned looking. She came up to me and whispered, I just heard him mumbling something. I'm pretty sure he said the word devil at least 3 times. I replied, just keep ignoring it until you finish up. I then decided to try pranking her, or she walked back out to the dining area. I whispered, have fun to her. This got her to smile, and she called me a jackass. When she went back out there, I watched her the entire time. She was doing her work. The tables were close enough to the counter where I could still talk to her if I wanted to, so that I wouldn't have to shout. I asked her to please not work tomorrow, because I was hoping both of us could work again. This was me working my game, you could say. But because I was talking to her, I wasn't watching the man in the corner. Suddenly, Elizabeth screamed and ran behind the counter. I was thrown off and didn't know how to react until I saw the crazy guy approaching the counter. I told Elizabeth to run to the back employee section while I talked to the guy she did. So, of course, as she disappeared behind the door, I asked the guy if he needed help. There was a good 10 seconds of silence. He was just standing in front of me on the other side of the counter. He finally asked me in some mumbly voice if I have a girlfriend. I replied, yes. Even though I was lying, I truly did not know where he was going with this. He said, relationships are poison for the mind. None of us need anyone else, whatever. I said I didn't care. I just wanted him to leave. I turned and held the door open for him to leave. He didn't move for a few seconds until once again. To my shock, he turned and walked away in the other direction towards the other corner of the store. I quietly told Elizabeth to hurry and call the cops. Now I continued to watch the man as I cleaned up the back section. Elizabeth came back out and started cleaning by the register. The man was all the way on the opposite side of the store, slouching in a booth. After a couple minutes, Elizabeth finished cleaning by the counter, and I told her to go to the back again. I didn't want her to be there when that guy might come back to the counter, but then I heard a sharp whisper sound coming from the direction of the corner of the room. It was the man. He seemed to be looking at me, whispering, catch, whatever that meant. He said it over and over. I tried my best to ignore it and continued doing my thing, though it was extremely uncomfortable. Out of nowhere, I had this weird feeling. He was holding something bright in his hand. That was the biggest shocker of the night. It was a small blade like a pocket knife when I put 2 and 2 together, that he was whispering, catch all, while holding a blade. I yelled to the back for Elizabeth to hurry up and see where the cops were, but also to stay back there. She didn't reply, so I assumed she didn't hear me, but I would not go any closer to that guy. Instead, I ran to the back section and yelled it. She said the cops should be here soon. Then all of a sudden, we heard the dinging at the front door that went off when a customer would enter or leave Elizabeth, and I ran to the front to see what was going on. The guy was no longer in the corner, and he wasn't in the store at all anymore. Our only reasonable guess was that he walked out the front door just in time as that buzzer went off, and before police showed up, they couldn't have been there earlier than 10 minutes after we called. This was a really good job early, in fact, considering they were nearest for possible life-threatening situation. When the cops were there, Elizabeth and I both explained everything we knew. I even pointed, did the direction he walked out of, as if that would help. We cleaned and closed the shop soon after that, then went home. The cops called us that next day, asking Elizabeth and I to come back into the shop to go over the security tapes. I got work off, and luckily I was able to. Elizabeth, on the other hand, was not able to get work off, so I went in alone to help the cops with the tapes. Anytime the guy was on camera, they took note of it and took a still frame of it with their phones. There was this one part where the guy could be seen literally crawling on the floor to the front door. After Elizabeth and I went into the back, it was disturbing to say the least to watch him crawling on the dirty floor with his knife in hand toward the door. No surprise, though the police never caught him, at least as far as I know, still freaks me out. What could he have been planning on catching with that knife, and why on earth was he crawling on the floor in such a scene-like manner? If you like our stories, please subscribe and hit the like button. It really helps us keep going. My first job was when I was 16. I worked at the McDonald's in my suburb town during my junior year of high school. I had a decent amount of friends at school, but I was never really the most outgoing guy, so I never really was that engaged with any of the work talk or wanting to become friends with the other workers there. With this in mind, I can't recall exactly when this was, but I know it was during the school year. So it was either Christmas break or spring break, or possibly even just a weekend, though. I doubt that part matters very much for the story. I didn't have a car at this point in time, and the McDonald's I worked at was about a mile and a half from my house. I would usually just walk to work and have my mom come pick me up after my shift. Like I said, I don't even remember when exactly this took place, but I definitely worked that night until we were closing. I believe that was 11 or 12 at night. I'm going to go with 12, but I could be wrong on that one too. Anyways, I worked front of house at McDonald's, and that night I was there with a few other people, one of the shift managers and two back of house people. We were all around the same age, or maybe just above 21, including the manager. My shift that night went totally fine, with the exception of after we technically closed. That's when a bunch of annoying high school kids came through the drive-thru. That was the last thing I remember doing on my shift. It was kind of a bother. After we both left the restaurant, they finally drove away. All of us, including the back of house people, came up to the front to kind of relax for a minute. Now, our McDonald's had a door to get in that was more towards the right side of the building. When you entered, you came into the order area, and then there was an eat-in area off to the left. All of the lights behind the counter were on, and I think in the drive there were two, so we were standing around and said our goodbyes, and then I started to walk away. As I did, I looked over to the eat-in area, and there was a guy on the inside looking in. He was just standing there watching us creepily, so I sort of signaled at everyone else to stop. Then the door to McDonald's opened up, and I just left the creepy-looking guy. He walked in. I turned around and walked back over to join the others. The guy who entered walked over to us, and none of us knew who he was. One of them, I think it was Marcus, asked the guy what he was doing in here. We were closed. The guy gave Lisa, a shift manager, $20 and asked if we could make him some food. She gave him back his money and said, "Sorry, we were closed. We would open back up at 8 hours." Though the guy was acting all weird and saying things that didn't really make sense. Then we eventually got him to leave after being inside for 5 or 10 minutes. After he walked out, we decided to hang around for a couple of minutes just to make sure he was gone. Hopefully the guy wouldn't walk back in or be here again. When we opened up in the morning, we talked for maybe 2 or 3 more minutes, and then we said our goodbyes and left. We walked over to the door and looked outside by the Eden area. Again, nobody was there, so the guy must have left. So Lisa locked up, and we all got into our cars and drove away. Of course, I didn't own a car at the time, so I began walking home. I was halfway home, or less, I would say probably 7 minutos away from getting back to my house. I was going to try to sneak in without waking up any of my family members inside. I was on my street, and now just a couple of minutes from home, and I saw somebody sitting down on the curb. I was thinking it might be one of my neighbors, and I thought it was sort of random to see one of them just sitting out here then. As I was walking by, I had my head down, so I didn't see much, but I could remember the person standing up. And then I noticed that it was the same guy from McDonald's who had walked in about 15 minutes before. He was still wearing the same clothes. I don't know what he was doing, but I didn't stop walking. I just kept going and pretended like I didn't notice him. That's when I heard him say, "Hey," in sort of a loud voice. I was technically not supposed to be walking home this late, and I was really close, so I just kept walking without looking back. The guy then said he knew that I could hear him, and I should stop and talk to him. That sounded extremely creepy to me. The guy was weird, and I didn't want to know what he wanted. That's when I heard his footsteps walking up behind me. A couple of seconds later, I saw him get in front of me. It looked like he tried to grab me, or maybe he was just reaching for my shoulder. I don't know, but I was thoroughly creeped out. I turned and ran. The whole thing unfolded super fast. I was around half a block from my house, and at this point, I could already see it. So I ran to it, and then far down the sidewalk across the street. I turned around, and when I did, I saw the guy was running at me not too far away. So I spun around and kept running until I was at my house. Luckily for me, the guy was slower. I had to kind of spin around on the sidewalk and run down our short driveway, and then run up the steps to get to the front porch, and then the door. The whole time I heard the guy running after me. Once I got to the porch, I tried my best to unlock the door as fast as I could. It was tricky in the dark. The guy reached the bottom of our steps before I had the door unlocked. To this day, it's crazy to me that he was basically trying to chase me down. I was able to turn the lock right before he walked up the steps. Once the door was unlocked, I swung it open and then closed it. When it was closed, I locked it. Then the guy started pounding on the door. I didn't know what his problem was, but it was really creeping me out. He started screaming for me to open up so that he could come in here. I ran downstairs to where my parents' room was, and I woke my dad up. Nobody else in my family thus far had woken up, so I'm pretty sure I did a good job of sneaking in. When I woke my dad up, I explained to him the situation. The guy was still pounding on our door. My dad was not happy. He went upstairs and opened up the door. Then he screamed at the guy to go away. The man seemed shocked and then left. My dad wasn't happy with me getting home so late, and I told him that I would do better about that in the future. Then I explained to him how the guy had sort of appeared out of nowhere in the neighborhood. The next day, I reported everything to McDonald's, including what happened with the guy. Clearly, he had some problems, and I didn't want him hanging out there. Nobody ended up seeing him again at McDonald's or near my neighborhood before or after that, at least not to my knowledge. I was a manager at McDonald's for several years. I encountered several strange customers, but one in particular really stands out to me. I had transferred to a brand new location in my city. It was in a better neighborhood than the last one that I was working in. This meant fewer annoying customers and more nicer ones. The store was nicer in general, and I was optimistic about managing it for the first week or so. Things were pretty normal. I was learning the store and the new coworkers that I had. Things started to get strange. On a Sunday night, I was at home and I got a few missed calls from a phone number that I didn't recognize. I was in the other room and didn't hear my phone ringing when I eventually saw it. I was a little bit confused as to who was calling me at this hour. I assumed it was probably just a random person who dialed the wrong number, but that would not usually lead to missing 4 calls. I didn't call back or anything, but the person ended up calling me another 3 times in a row. I rejected the calls, but they called right back. I finally answered and asked them who it was. There was silence on the other end for a couple of seconds, and then they hung up. That was strange, but after that, they didn't call again as I started to walk away from my phone. Though I got a text message alert, I looked and saw that I had a text as well from that same number. It said something like, "Who's your favorite McDonald's manager?" I just blocked the number. It was getting late, and now I was sure that it was just some random who was prank calling me. I didn't have any clue of who it could be the next day. I was back to work, and it was pretty normal. I had forgotten all about the number calling me the night before. When I was working at night, I was towards the back of the store near the drive-thru window and taking care of an order. When one of the other workers came up to me, they told me to come to the lobby. It looked like someone might have damaged one of the tables. Apparently a kid was climbing all over it, and their parent didn't do anything. Then, when they left, the employee thought that the table looked broken, and there were some crumbs and what appeared to be food on it. I walked over to check things out and had a look at the messy table. There definitely were some crumbs and old food. I thought it was strange that someone would leave this kind of thing here, but overall, I thought maybe the table was just dirty, and for whatever reason, the employee assumed a kid was on it. When I touched the table to wipe it off, though, I picked up pieces of a broken snow globe. The base was cracked in half, and inside was mostly empty. That meant not only had the customer who left it here damaged a snow globe on our table, but I also had to clean it up. I was surprised that the employee didn't realize that it was broken glass. But whatever, as I was throwing it all into the trash, I heard the same employee yell at me and tell me, "There he is." I looked up confused at what they were talking about. The guy was pointing across the restaurant and out the window, and there was a man walking towards our McDonald's. He was walking away from another car as if to cross the parking lot. At first, I thought it was nothing more than a customer walking into our fine establishment, but then I realized something in his hand was all too familiar. He had another snow globe and was holding it at his side as he walked. "Why are you pointing at him?" Though I asked the other employee, they explained that it was the adult customer who had a kid with him. When I had looked out the window, I didn't see a child, though I looked back and the man was now no longer visible. Before I could take a guess at where he went, I heard someone starting to push open the front doors, but then they stopped. It appeared as if they tried to pull one of the doors open. Instead, the man then knocked on the door and pulled open again. I guess he didn't know we were a 24-hour location. 2 of our doors had internal locks that prevented them from being opened. Unlike the sliding door, which was usually open, we used these locks whenever we had rowdy customers or teenagers in the store to prevent them from coming back in. Now we were using it because the man had knocked on the glass and was starting to bang after seeing him do this. I told the employee that I would handle it. I went over to the door, and honestly, I wasn't sure what to say when I got there. I didn't want to unlock the door to let this man in after his strange behavior, but I also didn't know what to say to him. I had to think fast, "Sir. You aren't allowed back inside after you broke a snow globe and left glass all over the table," I said to him. The man just looked at me. He was wearing some kind of long red jacket and had a winter hat on. "Sorry. It just slipped out of my hands. It was an accident. I want to make it up to you, and I also forgot something." He replied with them. I asked him what he had forgotten, and he said that he forgot the snow globe and a watch. I knew he was lying about the snow globe. That thing was in about a dozen pieces. But I thought maybe there was the chance that he had really forgotten about the watch. How come the snow globe broke, though? I asked him. The man struggled to explain something and instead said that he wanted to make it up to us. He told me to unlock the door so he could give us something. He pulled out a couple of crumpled $1 bills from his pocket and said there was more inside when he pulled out the snow globe. though I noticed a part of it was cracked. He tried to hide the cracked part from me, side from me, and he said that it wasn't the snow globe that he broke earlier. His entire story was not adding up. I told him to just hand me whatever he wanted to, and I would search for his watch that he forgot. I suddenly was very confident that he was not going to find his watch here, and he was probably up to no good. This was later confirmed after the man handed me the snow globe through the crack in the door, and then a couple of dollars. He reached into his jacket without ever looking away from me. He pulled out a pocket knife. I was surprised to see him holding this, but he didn't exactly make a threatening move. He also didn't even attempt to explain why he had just pulled it out. I wasn't even sure if he meant to threaten me or not, but with the knife in hand, he seemed more persistent that I should unlock the door. I told him no, again backed away from the door, and tossed the snow globe right into the trash. This made the man really angry, and he started to pound on the door with the knife handle. I told the others to call the police on him. After a few minutes, the man gave up and walked away. I'm really not sure what his endgame was. A week or so later, the same number texted me saying that he was really sorry. The first time that he had broken the snow globe, I told him to never come into our store again after that. I blocked his number again. I never did find out who he was or why he wanted back inside the store.